Denise Richards' performance as Dr. Christmas Jones in The World Is Not Enough has been a topic of debate among fans and critics. Her performance in The World Is Not Enough, 1999, as Dr. Christmas Jones, a nuclear physicist and ultimately a Bond girl, often gets mixed reviews. Some audiences appreciate her as a classic Bond girl with beauty and toughness, while others find her portrayal a bit underwhelming compared to previous Bond films. She has taken a lot of heat, with some people saying she's a miscast lead in a Bond movie, a miscast Bond girl, and just did not turn in a great performance. Well, here we are going to defend Denise Richards from all of this. Here we go. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
From our podcast, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, and our website, spymovienavigator.com, your premier go-to resources for all you spy movie fans. All right, here we go.
All right, now, Dan, it's going to be really fun to talk about this, right? Because Denise Richards grew up here in the Chicago suburb.
Yeah. We love to have these Midwest actors. Okay, so Tom, let's start by discussing some of the points that can be made in her defense, and also give the counter view too, because we're gonna defend each one of these counter views. Let's start with the character and the character's complexity. All right, she's a nuclear physicist. That can get complex. I actually met a rocket scientist on Saturday, a real one. My niece's husband was a real rocket scientist. I said, wow. All right. So.
Was he gorgeous?
She thinks so.
Well, good.
All right. Richards herself has mentioned that she appreciated the role because it was brainy, athletic, and had some depth of character, which to some degree went against the grain of traditional portrayal of Bond girls for the most part. And let's not forget, she was 28 when she played Christmas Jones. Maybe, just maybe, her character was intended to smash some stereotypes.
And it also smashed a stereotype of her. She'd never played a role like this. I mean, so
Right.
This went against the grain of the role she's played. I mean, think about Wild Things. It's a very different role.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of this coin of character complexity is miscasting concerns.
Yeah.
Many viewers felt that Richards, like I say, she was known for other roles. She did Starship Troopers and Wild Things. Wild Things was a very different character. Starship Troopers, she was a pilot in futuristic things. So she had to have some brains, and there were a little bit of action, but not much. So some people think that she wasn't believable as a nuclear physicist. Could this concept of miscasting overshadow her performance? I mean, no matter what she did.
Yeah, I mean, these critics felt that her performance lacked the depth and complexity seen in other iconic Bond girls. You look back at Ursula Andress, Honor Blackman, or even a more recent, later Bond girl like Eva Green. And, of course, there is a difference they're pointing out.
Yeah, but a lot of that's around beauty, right? Because she's very beautiful and she's very young here. And I just think this is a bunch of misogynist crap.
Yeah.
Just because she's very pretty, she can't be a nuclear physicist. I would think nuclear physicists and all female scientists would be happy to see this portrayal. I mean, just because she's pretty, she can't be smart too? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And I think also this shows that, hey, everyone's got this preconceived idea of what a Bond girl is supposed to be or look like. The iconic Bond girl. Hey, James Bond had lots of different kinds of Bond girls, from Pam Bouvier in License to Kill to Vesper Lynn in Casino Royale. I mean, he had different kinds of Bond girl, but everybody has this concept that, oh no, they know better what a Bond girl is. And so she can't possibly be a Bond girl. Well, you're wrong. She's a Bond girl. All right. We're going to talk about some of these real life female physicists towards the end of this episode, Tom, because, hey, can you be good looking and be smart? Come on. What's wrong with people?
Absolutely. Plus, I mean, I saw an interview and she was talking about how she liked the costume she got to wear because the traditional Bond girl costumes wouldn't work in the situation she was put in.
Right.
And this is all around her beauty and the costume. I mean, it just, everybody's saying that's all wrong and she's miscast because of part of this. I'm like, you guys are nuts.
Yeah. And really, you look at the writing too. I mean, she's acting. She's acting the lines written for her. So maybe her character, Christmas Jones, was written as a somewhat one-dimensional character, not being given the same depth or development that might have made her stand out more. So you're going to blame her for that? If you want to talk about the development of character within the movie itself, within the story, that's writing.
Well, and when you talk about the writing here, right? I mean, take that name. My guess is, because people laugh at the name too. My guess is it was that someone came up with the joke that they do at the very end.
Right.
So they decided to call her Christmas and use Jones as a nondescript last name. I mean,
Yes.
could her whole part just been written as a joke?
Yeah.
Because they
I
didn't
don't know if
provide
her
the
whole
depth
part
of the character.
I don't know her whole part written as a joke, but certainly the name. I don't doubt the name was thrown in there and it's like, yeah, we can make a couple of Christmas jokes out of this thing. Additionally, some viewers found the character's romantic involvement with Bond to feel somewhat forced, especially
You
given the
think?
film's focus. Yeah, I mean, given the film's focus on action and espionage rather than character-driven arcs, hey, maybe that's true. Maybe it is forced because things happen quickly here. But again, I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, see, now for me, I thought that the age difference between Brosnan and Denise made it look a bit forced. I mean, he was 18 years older than her, and he looked a lot more than 18 years older than her. I mean, I was
Yeah,
surprised that she wasn't like 22 or 23 when she made this movie. She was 28,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
she
Right.
really looks young.
Yeah,
But
she does.
but Bond has a history of doing some of this big age gap thing. I mean, the
Yeah, this
biggest
isn't as
one,
bad
yeah,
as more.
the
You
biggest
know,
one was 38-year differential between Roger Moore and Allison Doody.
View to a kill.
And this surprised me. And Roger Moore had only a 31-year differential with Holly Lynn Johnson. I thought there
Yeah,
would have been more than that.
yeah. Well,
But
even in the movies, I'll go buy you an ice cream cone. Come on.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
But in this movie, and The World Is Not Enough, this age differential is in the top 10 for all Bond movies.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking about lines written and her delivering the lines. Let's talk a little bit about the script and direction.
All right. So sometimes an actor's performance can be influenced by the script and direction. Like
Yeah,
often is.
absolutely.
The dialogue and the scenarios given to Richards might not have been fully showcasing her abilities. And quite honestly, the script did take a lot of heat as well and was criticized for a variety of reasons. And
Yeah.
we'll get to my favorite reason in a little bit. All right. But one of the things was plot inconsistencies,
Yeah.
right? Many people
Yeah.
felt that the plot had several holes in it and inconsistencies, making it less believable and less a complete story. I'm not sure about this critique, but if it's accurate, and given who the writers were, it puts a lot more pressure on the director, the DP, and the actors.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. This isn't the actor's fault. If that was the case, that there's plot inconsistencies, it's the writer's fault and everyone else's fault. Like I said, you
And I'll
can't
give
pin
you
that
that.
one on Denise Richards.
I'll absolutely give you that one.
All right. Let's look at character development because a lot of people say, hey, certainly Pierce Brosnan's performance as James Bond was well received, but again, some critics felt the other characters, especially the villains, lacked depth and development. Well, actors act based on what they are given and how they are directed. So, how did Denise do? She was given the lines to say, she delivered her lines and looked good doing it. Now, people say, well, she delivered her lines poorly because everyone's a good judge. Not as good as we are, but everyone's a good judge. Because she was
We're
not a
judging here,
convincing,
Dan.
yeah, she was not a convincing nuclear physicist. Everybody knows what everybody's got a buddy next door who's a nuclear
Now you're
physicist,
saying
so they
that's
know.
what some people say.
Yeah, that's what some people say. I'm not sure that this is true. What do real physicists sound like? They can sound very different from each other, for sure. Some are more comfortable speaking, and others not so much. Some are quick and to the point, while others develop the concept they are trying to explain in full detail. Listen to some scientists and stuff on YouTube and listen to them talking. Was Denise Richards' delivery so unbelievable? I don't think so. We will give you a couple of examples in a minute when we talk about the actual dialogue. Okay.
Yeah. No, one of the things that bothers me about people criticizing the way she delivered her lines and saying she didn't sound like a nuclear physicist, right?
Yeah.
She learned the correct way to pronounce some scientific terms in this movie. And she talks about this in some of the interviews. If you watch some of her interviews online, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as an example, and this is just because this is one of my biggest pet peeves. She says nuclear correctly in the scene with Bond and Zukovsky.
Yeah.
Bond says nuclear, while Richard says nuclear. The word is Nuclear, nuclear.
Nuclear.
Now, the word
Right.
So the original word was nuclear, but we had many people pronounce it as nuclear, like Pierce did here, including some U.S. presidents. And there have been enough of that both terms are considered acceptable, but
I
not
don't
to
think
me.
so. No.
Because to me, the way Richard says it is correct in the movie, showing she did the work to be able to say some of these scientific terms and stuff. And that's just, I mean, nuclear is an easy one to talk about
Yeah,
because
right. Yeah.
of
And
the
it's nuclear. I mean,
yeah,
that's the word.
exactly. And that's the way it should be, damn it.
Yeah. All right. Now let's look at another critique here is predictable twists. And again, when we talking about these things in the movie, predictable twists and stuff, he's like, oh, that's not Denise. Hey, predictable twists impact the actors. That's why we're talking about it. Did the script reduce the suspense? Many say too many predictable twists. They were not real twists. They got straightened out by poor script. Well, all right. Maybe that's true. If so, again, it puts more pressure on the actors, including Denise. So who would be to blame here?
I know the answer to this.
I actually don't think it's really a bad storyline, though it takes heat for sure. I know that. It was hard to follow GoldenEye, like Quantum of Solace was hard to follow Casino Royale. So people are going to be a little more critical of this. But actually, I don't
Wait,
think it's a bad
when you're saying
storyline.
hard to follow, you mean it was hard to come out after GoldenEye, like
Yeah.
Quantum was? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
right. Yeah, because
Right.
those were fabulous movies, right? Those are great. All right. So let's look at the dialogue. Was this dialogue good
Okay.
in World Is Not Enough?
All right. I can't hold back anymore. Now's probably the time to point out that this was Purvis and Wade's first Bond
Oh,
screenwriting credit.
I was
Of
wondering if
course,
you'd
the
get that in here.
dialogue wasn't good. That's not Denise Richards' fault. Purvis and Wade can't write Bond movies, in my opinion.
Okay, there
So,
you go.
and this was where it started.
Okay. All right. Not Denise Richards' fault is your point.
Yeah, yes. And I'm going to
Purvis and
put it
Wade
on
again.
Purvis and Wade.
Many thought the dialogue was rather cheesy for Bond movies because Bond movies in the past had some sterling dialogue and quips and meaningful lines. But you know what? We're going to point out some of these lines, and we think some of these are pretty darn good. There were lines in this script that Denise Richards had to deliver that some thought were very odd or even cliche-ish, which made her character harder to accept. Well, she delivered the lines written for her, number one, and number two, she delivered them well. So we're going to talk about some of these lines, but some of them are good. So if the dialogue was not crisp, yeah, let's blame Denise.
No.
No.
Again, I'm going to remind you who were the writers on this? Purvis and Wade. We
Yeah,
can't
there you
blame
go.
them again.
Tom loves Purvis and Wade. All right.
I am not a fan.
All right. We said some of the dialogue was good and targeted here and well thought out. And so we're going to look at that right now. For example, when Dr. Jones meets Bond, she straightens him out quickly as he is posing as a Russian, Dr. Arkov. Then Dr. Arkov says, and you are Miss. And she snaps back at him immediately.
Dr. Jones. Christmas Jones. And don't make any jokes, I've heard them all.
Okay, to me, this is a very telling line. She knows that she's good looking, obviously. She knows she has heard jokes about her and her name, and she's telling him, hey, don't go there. To me, this is Denise Richards playing her part well. Boom.
Yeah. Now I'm not sure that I believe that the joke thing is because of her looks. I mean,
But,
anyone with that first name would have heard all the jokes. I mean,
yeah.
imagine if her last name was Joy, and it'd be Christmas Joy. I mean, how many times would she hear, "I want to spread a little joy for Christmas"?
Oh,
You know, that's
there you are.
it's not her fault that it's the name, and the looks. I don't think have anything to do with the jokes she hears. I think the jokes she hears is because her first name is Christmas.
Yes, it is her name. That's the genesis of the jokes. But she would not be the recipient of those jokes if she wasn't good looking. That's the point.
I'll
That's
see
my
now.
point.
I totally disagree with you with my
No,
last
that's my
name.
point. Yeah.
No, but with my last name, right? I am definitely not in the same league in looks as Denise Richards, right? And with my last names, I've heard every pizza joke you can come up with
Yeah.
because
All
of my
right, all
last
right, all
name,
right, all right.
right? And I'm not in the same league as her.
All right. And then Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Arkoff asks about protection from the plutonium and so on. And again, confidently, she tells him where he is going is relatively safe, but she's been cleaning up a mess his lab built using tritium, which she has spent the last 6 months trying to clean up. So she says,
So if you need any protection at all, it's from me.
now, I like that line for a lot of reasons. Her face delivers the line as well as her words. Her eyes flash. Then she dismisses him, saying, your friends are waiting for you. Like, I thought that was pretty good.
That was.
Yeah. Like, hey, don't waste my time anymore here. I got stuff to do. This is a strong move and a strong and confident delivery, I thought, for Denise and for the character.
I agree with you.
She did a good job.
Now, it's kind of interesting because we're talking about lines that we think work, right? Yeah. As we're doing this now, and I just nailed Purvis and Wade that I don't like them, right? I don't like them, but even a blind squirrel is going to find an acorn sometimes. So Purvis and Wade might get a line out or two. Now, the next thing that I did like was she tests him out and speaks Russian to him, telling him that his English is very good.
Yes.
And, of course, Bond would be able to do this. He turns around and he answers in Russian that he studied at Oxford. Then Dr. Jones gives him a suspicious look.
Yeah, I like that look. She did a good job there. It was like,
Yeah. Now,
all right.
So now, one other thing with the scene, and this is a little nitpick on my part, that might have been a scene where Denise Richards was really saying it in Russian. But if you notice, the camera isn't looking at her when she says it. And usually that means they don't want you seeing her say it, because my guess is she was probably dubbed by someone else. Or she did say it and they put it in later, but my guess it was dubbed by someone.
Yeah, look, that's not a critique. There's probably not a ton of actors that speak fluent Russian. So
I wasn't pointing it as a critique. I just was kind of like, that was one of the things I noticed in this scene.
Yeah. I'm sure it was dubbed. And you could see for a second, though, they do show for a second when she's talking that her lips are not in sync with what she's saying. So they did show for a brief second her speaking Russian, but I don't think it's her speaking. But look at the dubbing that's taken place in virtually every Bond movie. I mean, come on,
that's true.
From Goldfinger to everybody.
And again,
Honey Rider and Dr. No.
I'm not trying to make this as a critique. Right. I don't look at it as a negative. I just was one of those, when I look at how movies are made and I see, they cut away and you hear Russian, probably wasn't the actor or actress.
Yeah, I'm good with, because the character spoke fluent Russian. That's all we need to know, I think. All right. So let's move on. She has a line later in the movie when Bond asks her,
what do I need to defuse a nuclear bomb?
The one that's in the pipeline. Everybody knows that, right? And Dr. Christmas Jones says confidently,
me.
That is a good line. That is a good line.
One word. She delivers it. Boom. I thought that was great. And so a helicopter's taken under the pipeline. She's looking down and communicates in a look that she's a little nervous. She looks down there. Okay, this might be tough, but okay. But her face delivers it. Well done there, I thought. Then bravely, she goes into the pipeline with Bond, risking her life. In the pipeline, when Bond asks her,
you know how to drive one of these things?
Referring to the little electronic cart that rides in the tube on the tracks and of some type and solders the seams, she says,
doesn't exactly take a degree in nuclear physics.
Then she stares ahead confidently. Okay, that is a good line and well done.
And to me, it's an in-joke that really puts a little tongue-in-cheek about her character being a nuclear physicist. Looking like she does and sounding like she does.
Yeah.
Like, I can handle this. Even without my degree, I'd be able to do this.
Yeah, it was a well-written and well-delivered line. But it also makes the point that she is a nuclear physicist and a capable one. So driving this little rig is a piece of cake. Give me something hard to do, in other words, as she will be doing in a minute, which is why she is in there with Bond to save the day.
Yeah, at some point, they need her to be a nuclear physicist.
Exactly. Now, she attaches a device to the bomb and says,
it's a tactical fission device. Low yield. Hold me steady.
Now, Bond's a little nervous now. Not her. Bond is nervous. He says,
you've diffused hundreds of these, right?
And she said,
yeah, but they're usually standing still.
But, so this is good dialogue for the moment and for what's going on here. So But then she discovers,
So,
hey,
so we
someone's
have 2
tampered.
minutes of good dialogue in the movie.
Yeah. Hey, but we're talking about Denise's delivery and her character. This is the important stuff. All right. Then she discovers someone's tampered with the bomb, and she says half the plutonium was missing. So it's like, okay, now what are we thinking as the viewers? But again, she's delivering these lines. She knows what's going on with the bomb. She knows what she's attaching to the bomb. She's good at what she's doing. So, of course, Bond wants the bomb to blow up. And yes, of course, they escape. They get out of the tube. And Bond explains now why he wanted the bomb to explode. Of course, half the plutonium was gone, so it wasn't going to be this huge nuclear explosion. And so,
Do you want to explain why you did that? I could have stopped that bomb. You almost killed us.
I did kill us. She thinks we're dead, and she thinks she got away with it.
and then Jones has one of her best lines, I think, in the entire movie. Another one you have to credit Purvis and Wade for.
Well, that's if they wrote this. I'm thinking this might have been a Michael G. Wilson line.
Yeah. And Jones says,
Do you want to put that in English for those of us who don't speak spy? Who's she?
Electra King.
in other words, she didn't understand what he said when Bond said, she thinks we're dead. She's like, yeah, you want to put that in English for those of us who don't speak spy? Who is she?
Well, it's not just who is she, but why is it a good thing that she thinks we're dead?
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
so, this is definitely one of those lines that I could totally see Dr. Christmas Jones saying,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
because she's involved in spy stuff, but she's
Yeah.
not a spy.
Not a
She's a
spy.
nuclear physicist. It's like, why? I'm not following why this is a good thing that she thinks we're dead or that someone thinks we're dead.
But here are the writers focusing on her sexualness. Jones, about the missing plutonium, says,
I have to get it back, or somebody's going to have my ass.
okay, we know in any Bond movie, you're not getting away with a line like that.
You mean
And she
there might be a
smirks.
quip? There might be a quip coming back.
Yeah. Bond replies as he looks her up and down.
First things first.
Okay, before he's going to have her ass. I guess that's the implication. And she smirks like, well, he went for it. Or, hey, that'll be fun, In other words, with that smirk she's showing, actually, she's in control because whether or not he gets anything from her is going to be up to her. It's like, good. She gives him a half smile and a stare after indicating, yeah, okay, this might be good. All right.
Right. Then a little later in the movie, after the sub scene, we get all the Christmas jokes. I mean,
Yeah.
including her line.
So isn't it time you unwrapped your present?
Yeah,
she delivered what they wanted her to deliver, but
right.
now she's delivering a joke on her name that she's probably heard before, or
Yeah.
maybe she made it up on the spot. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But it's good that she's quipping about her own name, but it's funny because she had said earlier, I've heard all of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I thought that was good because it kind of brings things full circle again. So that's good. All
Yeah,
right.
and it brings us back then, that line brings us back to at the beginning when we first see her, right? Because that's when she tells Bond off, but she's wearing that white protective suit and she takes it off. She's wearing a tight tank top and shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it looks like it might be warm out, so why not be in shorts and tank top?
Yeah,
The rest of
right.
the personnel are dressed in military garb, but she's
Yeah.
a scientist, so why not be comfortable? The critique here is that this is a problem. But who put
Yeah,
her there? It wasn't Denise Richards who said, oh, I'm going to come up and show up to work today in shorts and a tank top, and they're just going to start filming. The writers and the costumers.
Yeah.
Denise probably didn't insist on it, although she was happy to have that type of attire, as we mentioned before.
Yeah, I mean, really, she said in an interview once, if I were a nuclear physicist, I'd want to wear shorts and a tank top. Maybe I'll set a trend. So I don't mind. And again, like I said, hey, she didn't do it. It wasn't her insisting on shorts and a tank top. I mean, the customers gave it to her. All right, let's move on to the pacing issues because there's always pacing issues. And
Yeah,
how
we
does that
should
affect
we should
actors?
move on to the pacing issues so the pacing of this episode goes right.
Yeah. All right. There's always basic issues. And that impacts character development. What gets in, what gets cut, and it has an impact, good or bad, on the finished movie. Actor issue here on the pacing? No, not really. So leave Denise out of this one as well.
Yeah, I agree. She was not the reason for the pacing issues.
Yeah. All right. Let's return to focus directly now back on Denise. Now,
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about some of the movie roles she had. She had a risk of typecasting and expectations getting in her way. As we mentioned, she was known for films like Starship Troopers and Wild Things. And Wild Things, that was kind of a very risque type of a movie.
mhm.
So there may be some certain expectations in terms of what people expected here.
Yeah.
Sometimes previous roles can impact future roles and, importantly, people's expectations. What is she going to be? So coming off of Starship Troopers was tough. She got very good reviews for her performance there.
Yeah,
And she was
did.
she was nominated for a Blockbuster Entertainment Award, and Variety praised her for this as well,
Ah,
as did Glamour magazine, who called her, quote, one of the most well-rounded characters on screen, end of quote. So did she lack the gravitas for this role? I don't think so. I think
I don't think so either. All right.
She did the role she was given.
People do have a preconceived notion sometimes of known actors. I mean, some of the Bond people wanted to quit Bond because they didn't want to get typecast as this character of Bond. So,
Well,
you
think
understand how
about
this works.
How many actors are known for one role and then they struggle?
Yeah.
I mean, most
That's
of them.
true.
But
Yeah.
then you get the rare exception, like a Tom Selleck, Carol O'Connor,
Yeah.
Sidney Poitier. I mean, there are some that can, once they're typecast, break it somehow. And
Yeah.
so many people can't.
Yeah, but people do have this preconceived notion, and a lot of times, hey, maybe her portrayal of a nuclear physicist clashed with these preconceived notions. Who knows? Was she cast because of her physical beauty and not her acting? My opinion, you can have nuclear physicists who are attractive. What is the problem? And good at what they do. I don't get it. Why not? We're arguing the acting here. Certainly, she was beautiful. Many argue that her delivery of scientific jargon and all the technical dialogue was unconvincing and just sounded off, while some saying that Richard's performance was just flat and lacked the mental depth needed for a brilliant scientist.
Yeah, so
this
no,
kind of stuff drives me crazy.
It does. And I addressed some of this earlier in this episode.
Yeah.
But Bond movies have always had beautiful women in them. And as I've mentioned, I think she did well with her handling of this thing, especially the technical terms.
Yeah.
Now, her, quote, lack of depth for brilliant scientists that we sometimes see isn't a fair critique. Remember, she is not a spy. She's a nuclear physicist who has to accompany a spy.
Yeah.
She's not going to be smooth with the spy stuff. She shouldn't be. Actually, if she was super smooth, that would look weird to me.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so too many times we see the reluctant spy, which is kind of what she gets thrown into here, being really smooth and in control all the time. And that doesn't seem normal to me. And I think it's good she seems a little bit quirky, because for me, that works, because she's not a spy and she has been trained to handle these situations.
Yeah. And again, this critique with people that she didn't have the depth for, or she really didn't know the words or whatever. They weren't thrilled with what she was saying because, a person like that wouldn't be saying these words. They don't know what they're talking about. That's just terrible. That's a terrible critique.
And it's on the writers if what she's saying doesn't work.
Yeah, but I'm saying she delivered it fine, and people who have this preconceived idea of what they think a nuclear physicist should sound like, come on. All right.
Well, and I'm gonna go back to Starship Troopers for a second.
Yeah,
right.
It was good.
It was good. She acted the role, but she didn't act it much different than she acted Christmas Jones. Right. So that was what they were looking for when they cast her.
Right. She played the role they gave her.
Yep.
How's that?
And her past experience was what they were looking for, probably in the casting when they cast her.
Yeah, and part of casting her too was the physicality and the presence that she could bring to the movie. Richards brought this certain physicality to the role. There were a lot of action scenes in this movie, and her character, Christmas Jones, was in several key action sequences, and Denise, as Christmas Jones, handled it well.
I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side, many thought that the chemistry she had with Bond was lacking, which is crucial for the dynamic between Bond and his female counterparts. We've always seen that, whether they're allies or villains or whatever, we're always looking for that interaction. Also, the writers, as is often the case, focused on the sexuality of Christmas Jones, and that perhaps detracted from the serious nature of her profession, making it harder for viewers to take her seriously or to see her as a real nuclear physicist. Nuclear physicists can be sexual. You got a problem with that?
Not if
I
you're
don't.
not if you're a nuclear physicist lover.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some later that are real nuclear physicists and real scientists who are nice looking too. So she saves Bond's life. Oh, go figure. Another female saving Bond's life, which happens in so many movies because Bond sometimes is.
He
not
always
that good.
needs, the women always need to save him.
Yeah. So she saves Bond when Renard is after him in one scene, and she jimmies some wires and gets the metal door to open in time for Bond to escape from the bomb that Renard left to blow Bond to smithereens. You know, Renard said to Bond cockily, "You'll feel nothing at all." So she did well in physical scenes here. Now, when they escape out of the silo in the nick of time, of course, as fire is licking at their butts as they're trying to escape, when they do get out and they see lots of vehicles moving, she is supposedly out of breath from all the running. And I have to say, if I have any critique of anything she did in this movie, that part sounded fake.
Why?
She did not sound like she was out of breath. It sounded like, okay, make it sound like you're out of breath and be out of breath. To me, it didn't sound like she was out of breath. It was like, okay, yeah, well, look at this. Okay. All right. I thought that was the weakest part of her performance, but
All right.
not much else.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go. That's nothing.
I'm gonna
Right?
have to. I'm gonna have to listen to that again because I totally missed that one. All right.
Okay.
So
All right.
so let's move into the cultural context. Right.
Yeah. This is important.
This is because female roles in the 1990s were generally very stereotypical. The mold
that's true.
hadn't really been broken, and the ceiling hadn't yet been shattered. I mean, there were different standards and expectations for female characters in action movies, and the industry was still evolving in its portrayal of strong, intelligent female characters. If we look at
Sure.
the previous Bond movies, they do have some strong female characters. I mean, Honey Rider was tough on her own, Pussy Galore, Fiona Volpe. So it's not like the Bond franchise didn't have strong females before, but they didn't have them being strong and at the brain level of a nuclear physicist.
Yeah. I mean, Vesper Lynn was good. She ran the money, right? So, I mean, she was smart. She was bright and all that kind of stuff. But here, yeah, a nuclear physicist. So we got to make a little leap.
Yeah,
Right.
but so what if she's a nuclear physicist? She's got to have some, she's got to been doing something.
Right. While her performance might not have been universally acclaimed, these points highlight that there were elements beyond her control and aspects of her portrayal that were commendable. What do you think about her role in this movie, everybody? Tell us. Despite these criticisms, it's important to remember that opinions on performances can be highly subjective. Some viewers appreciated her role and found her portrayal enjoyable, and we agree, and we are defending her here because we think she did a great job. Now, we're going to look at some very notable Christmas Jones moments in The World Is Not Enough that really showcased her strengths.
So let's start this examination with the introduction scene when we first see her.
Yeah.
Because when she's first introduced, she's exuding confidence.
Yeah.
She asserts her expertise as a nuclear physicist. Thus, it establishes her character's intelligence and professionalism. And so what if she's good looking? That's a bonus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We mentioned this earlier, right? That's when we're talking about the line she delivered there. She did this well, and our introduction to her and to Bond as Arkoff was like strong. All right.
Yeah. So not only was she good looking, right, in the introduction scene, later through the movie, as we've already mentioned, she's got very strong action sequences throughout.
Yeah.
So,
her physical abilities were terrific, right? They look good. She looked good doing it.
Yep. And as we're talking about her strengths, let's make sure we point that out.
Yeah. And to her partnership with Bond. As is often the case with James Bond, without help, he fails. Throughout the movie, Dr. Jones works closely with James Bond, providing crucial and critical scientific knowledge and assistance. They collaborate to prevent the nuclear disaster. And without her, boom!
Boom! That's good. All right. Now, another
So there
strength.
you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And now another strength that of hers we see in the final confrontation.
Yeah.
Again, Bond gets more help from Christmas. And in the climax, Dr. Jones plays a significant role in what happens in the final showdown against Renard.
Yeah.
She demonstrates bravery, and she's also quick thinking, strong physically, and she's a true partner in helping Bond save the day.
Yeah.
And in one of the interviews, they talk about that scene, and she's talking about how difficult some of the holding on to things that she had to do in that scene and filming were, but she pulls it off.
Yes, she does. And her, again, you're talking about it, and her on-screen presence was terrific. Despite the criticisms, Richards brought a certain charisma and a presence to the role that some viewers found very appealing. Her confidence and energy added to the film's dynamic.
Especially since we liked it, and it was especially since she wasn't a spy. Right?
Yeah.
That's what makes it work for me, because it could have been stiff if she was supposed to be the suave spy, but she's not. Right. So I think her on-screen presence is right there.
I agree.
All right. So these moments demonstrate that despite some criticisms, Denise Richards brought a blend of intelligence, physicality, and courage to her role. Do you have a favorite scene from this movie?
Yeah.
One that had Denise Richards in it? We think these points that we've talked about today highlight that Richards' performance had its strengths and resonated with certain audiences. What are your favorite moments or aspects of her character in the film?
Yeah. Now we're going to look at a couple of quick things that Denise Richards said herself. She has shared mixed feelings about her performance in The World Is Not Enough. In a recent interview, she mentioned that she was hurt by the mocking and criticism she received for her role as Dr. Christmas Jones. Richards pointed out that the highly sexualized nature of her character led to some of the ridicule.
But you have to remember, she was in Wild Things, right? When she talks about being able to play sexuality, she could play sexuality.
Yeah, right. Right. Despite all the negative feedback, so Richards appreciated the role because it was brainy, athletic, and had this depth of character that we mentioned early on. And it contrasted with the traditional portrayal of Bond girls for the most part. She felt that if her character had been dressed in a more conventional scientist's attire, fans might have been disappointed by the lack of the typical sexy Bond girl look. So anyway, she knows, hey, she got put in her costuming, so, it wasn't her idea. Her reflections highlight the challenges that she faced in balancing the expectations of a Bond girl with the desire to portray a more intelligent and capable character. All right.
And I think she seems to have appreciated the character's attributes.
Yes.
But the public reception was really varied, and I don't think was fair to her.
Right. That's what the whole point of us defending her today. All right.
So let's wrap this discussion by talking about real women nuclear physicists who are good looking, because that's one of the things you hear a lot is, oh, she's too pretty for that role.
Yeah.
And so I obviously disagree that she's too pretty for the role. She's very pretty, but not too pretty for the role. I think she might have looked a little too young for the role, but I think the beauty worked. And can she be the only nuclear physicist to have been beautiful, Dan?
No, I mean, really, if you look at it, I mean, the appearance of scientists should not overshadow their achievements. And
I'm shallow, Dan.
There are indeed many accomplished women in nuclear physics and in science in general who have made significant contributions to the field. So, I mean, you look at Madame Curie. You look at pictures of her. She was a decent-looking woman, and she was a brilliant scientist. Look at Liza Meitner. She's a physicist who played a crucial role in the discovery of nuclear fission. Hello. Which is the basis for nuclear reactors and atomic bombs. Check her out. Not bad. Look that up.
That was a misogynist comment.
Well, hey, you know what? We're talking about this. Can you be brainy and good looking? Yeah, you can be. Yeah, and look at Catherine Way. She's a woman known for her work on the Manhattan Project. Okay. All right, folks. Is this enough? No.
No,
we got
because
more.
Today we have good looking scientists here. We've got Catherine Fries, who's a theoretical astrophysicist. You've got Joanne Manson, a professor of women's health at Harvard Medical School, and ranked as the world's top female scientist in 2024. So women have made a significant contribution in the world of science. Many led normal, healthy lives as spouses and mothers as well. I'm not sure how many of them were spies or thrown into a spy role. But yes, you can have brains, contribute to this fragile world of ours, and still be an attractive person.
Yeah. I mean, when's the last time anyone criticized men scientists who are good looking? I want to know that. Nobody does. In Bond movies, are we similarly critical of the male leads? No. All right.
Yeah, now to be fair, most male scientists in movies are made to look geeky, right? So, that might be why we don't see them.
You think Einstein looked geeky?
No, not at all.
All right.
All right. So, Dan, before we wrap, I think we need to say something about another spy movie Denise Richards was in because we have an episode on it.
Yes.
She was in the movie Undercover Brother. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, it's dated, but it's funny. You got to let loose a little some of your tightness we have in this day and age because this is a movie from a few decades ago. But I thought she was really good in that movie as well.
She was. And we got an episode on that, so check that one out.
So to me, it's hats off to Denise Richards. We're on your side here.
Absolutely. All right, that's a wrap. Christmas Jones was a good character played well by Denise Richards. This has been Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our podcast show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Please go review our show through your favorite podcast app. You can help us out a lot by doing that. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.